Sleep in the back of a car. Yeah, nobody will know.
Yeah.
Scott keeps threatening to build a hammock
yeah.
upstairs
Not a
with
bad
lagering
idea.
tanks.
But I know that's a dangerous thing to do because once I put my head down, I'm out.
That's it.
Yeah.
This week we're joined by Scott Frank and Steve Milford of Double Clutch Brewing. This is episode 81 of the Malting Hour.
What's the haps on the hops? Got yeast and speeds. This the Molten Hour where we talk about our drink and tell you what we think every other week. And if we get drunk, well, we might slur our speech. Got the gift of gab, the friends you wish you had. Join us for a drink, join us for a laugh. Time is never wasted, where you getting wasted. The Molten Hour here, people take your places. People take your places. People take your home.
Welcome to the Malting Hour. I'm one of your hosts, Tony Golick, joined always with
Brandon Whittinger.
And we are here in lovely Evanston, a suburb of Chicago, if you're not familiar. And we are joined with,
Scott Frank, the head brewer.
And Steve Milford, general manager.
and we are here at Double Clutch Brewing. Thanks, guys, for having us here this morning and letting us come out and talk to you guys.
Yeah. Thanks for coming by.
Having a beer at 9:45, 9:50. Is it 10 o'clock now?
It's 10 o'clock.
It's 10 o'clock. All right, so that works for me. Yeah.
That's a
Five
good morning.
somewhere.
Oh, everybody spilled it on myself. I need to go home. So why don't you guys tell us a little bit about Double Clutch? You guys are fairly new, obviously.
Yeah, so we opened in October 29th, right around Halloween of 2021. We were delayed by COVID, of course.
Of course.
And so we haven't even been open 6 months, but so far so good. I think the winter was a little tough. I don't know what this stupid dry January is, but I don't like it.
We've done it before.
Yeah, I refuse.
I didn't do it this year.
I always do February. It's shorter.
Yeah,
Smart.
I do dry mornings, but not this morning, apparently.
So how did Double Clutch come to be?
Well, if you want to know the whole story, so I have a younger brother. He's 5.5 years younger than I am, and he was a chef at the time. So this was about 13, 14 years ago, and we'd sit around and drink beers. We're a couple of beer geeks, obviously, and we were shooting the breeze about things we'd never done, making bucket lists, and he just stupid talk, and he said he had never made his own sausages before because he was a chef. And we went through, we'd never made cheese, pickles, bread, and beer came up. I said, well, I had a roommate once that made beer. I thought that was kind of cool. I'd never done that before. So that conversation passed and was forgotten. And then about a month later, I get a call from my brother, and he says, guess what I'm doing? I'm packing my own sausages. I'm like, crap. So my younger brother couldn't upstage me, so I went out and bought John Palmer's How to Brew, right?
There you go, yeah.
And I read it cover to cover. Didn't get it all, but I was interested.
Got to start somewhere.
Exactly.
That's a good book to start with.
Exactly. So some of it's easy and some of it's hard.
Absolutely.
So went down to Brew and Grow, and there's a guy who doesn't work there anymore named Rob that took me under his wing, and he said, I told him I want to do all grain brewing. I want to do the real deal.
Oh, you went all in.
I wanted to go all in. And he said, cool your jets. He pointed me over to where the kits were.
Yeah.
So I bought like $100 5-gallon, drum and carboy, whatever that $100 kit came with. And he said, try
the bucket and the tubes. And all that
exactly.
Yeah.
We started there.
Exactly. So he said, try 5 of these on your kitchen sink. And if you still got a passion for it, come back and talk to me. So I did, and I did still have a passion. And it evolved from there onto a Bunsen burner or a banjo burner, I guess,
Yep.
on the deck. And because the family, I have 2 kids and a wife, and they were complaining about the smell in the kitchen when I would boil.
Absolutely.
It's a
To the
beautiful
garage you
smell.
go.
Yeah, I don't real quick, my wife can't stand the smell of me brewing. I have like an electric brew set up where I could, vent it out the window if I really wanted to do it in the basement. She cannot stand the smell. She's like, it reminds her of SpaghettiOs.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's-
Chef Boyardee?
Chef Boyardee, don't.
Yeah.
Jeez. Sorry, anyway.
No, it's an interesting sidebar. But eventually that evolved into a 20-gallon tiered gravity brewery in my garage, and it got to the point where I couldn't park cars in there. We couldn't park our cars in there. I had taken over it. I had 2 kegerators. I converted an old refrigerator into a kegerator, put it on a dolly. I built a dolly. I used to be a cabinet maker, so I'm crafty with my hands, I suppose. Built this thing that for block parties, I would wheel this out, and I could put 4 corny kegs in there with 4 different flavors on tap. I was a hit in the neighborhood, but it meant I had to brew more and more. So it really became a full-time hobby. So my wife was taking the kids to nursery school and met another family who had their oldest kid was the same age as ours, and hit it off with this mom. And she said our husbands should meet each other. And I'd met a lot of dads. When your kids are in nursery school, you meet a lot of dads. But this guy, Myke Kelli, was the first one that said, hey, let's get a beer. And instantly we hit it off. And we both had a passion for cars. We're both gearheads and we're both beer heads. And so we would sit in my garage when I would brew or when I wasn't brewing and just demolish my supply of beer.
It's a good way to get rid of kegs. Empty
Exactly.
Kegs. You got to make space for more.
Right, because you're constantly wanting. Actually, what I wanted to do was brew, right, and keep experimenting with new flavors. And so it gave us a great opportunity, and we would sit there and daydream about building a brew pub. So that really wasn't feasible for us. Had we done it, this would have been around, I don't know, maybe 2015. We would have failed because we didn't know what we were doing. But he's a property owner, and he had a restaurant that wasn't paying the rent, essentially, and evicted them. And his 2 attorneys that do his real estate attorney stuff, I'm not an attorney, stuff's the best word I can use.
Expensive.
Expensive, yes.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
they owned a couple restaurants. And so they said, hey, we can do a restaurant here. And they had the passion to do this Neapolitan brick oven pizza straight from, I don't know if it's Neapolitan or
Neapolitan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they opened Napolita.
Oh, wow.
And it
In
was
Wilmette.
a raging success. And then they opened Pescadero. So a very long story, slightly shorter, they now own 12 restaurants in the Chicagoland area. So once that became a network for them and they had all of the managerial staff and cooks and waiters and everything, servers, now this became feasible.
Sure.
Right? They
And
said, how
so-
could we spend a lot of money?
Exactly. So it isn't any longer, but this was to date the most expensive
Really?
project they had.
Wow.
I mean, look at all that stainless steel.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
I mean, this place is beautiful. Like,
So-
walking up to it it's
Yeah,
pretty.
we
not to mention the
talked about-
cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
not
can
even
do that.
mention
We
the
can
cars,
get
I
to
know.
that, yeah.
So that's their family's collection mostly. We do have guest cars that are shown here, but he has a very large collection of cars that make the rotation.
Yeah, we're gonna take a bunch of pictures when we're done interviewing and everything. So it'll be on Instagram and everywhere else.
We can
You
share the
say-
car book too. He has about 86 cars.
Holy
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And each one has a description and a photograph that you'll see there are plaques up for each car and
That's super cool.
gives a
Yeah.
little history of the car, and it's kind of fun.
Love cars. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you said that, so this became their most expensive endeavor, so to speak.
Right.
So how did that all then come to a head here?
So we were talking about maybe scaling up what I had going in my garage,
Just a little bit.
just a little bit. But so we went around and started meeting with other brewers, and I did a short stint with Trevor Rose Hamlin at at Old Irving.
Yeah.
Great guys. Andreas
You know what?
Biller was there.
His name gets brought up a lot more than I think.
Well, he got
people
gold for his
expect.
Beezer,
Well, of
his hazy
course,
IPA.
That
and-
doesn't hurt.
Yeah,
and
not
he-
at all. Not
and he
at all.
got silver for his Dallas Kolsch. which is-
Absolutely, yeah. Which was the other place I was supposed to go last night, but brother-in-law back
Yeah.
there didn't go.
Yeah, exactly. I understand.
Yeah, we
that
actually
happened.
sat and talked with Trevor. Was it in December or January?
It was December.
In December, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he and Will have
Louisville
been
owner.
up here, and they're really good guys. And then I did, Mark Legen's over at On Tour. He was nice enough to bring me in, and I assisted him for like 3 weeks, and that really sort of got me on this scale. But yeah, I owe a lot to Trevor and Mark, and Andreas Biller, who's now at Great Central. He was at the time was Trevor's assistant, and he was fantastic as well. In fact, I still text all of them whenever a question pops up, of course. But But so we talked about scaling up that garage equipment and doing like, an $80,000 brewery.
Sure.
And so we were looking in that direction. We started visiting and talking to other brewers, and everybody we visited was buying more equipment. And we thought, what are we going to do with this, just pick a number, 3-barrel system that we built when we have to go to a 15-barrel system? And so we really started doing the math on what would be the most efficient size and how much would that cost. And then that required us to bring in a bunch of investors and partners, and so there's a lot of cooks in this kitchen, and and there are a lot of voices, but that's a good thing in a lot of ways, but they've given me a ton of freedom to do what I'm passionate about. And so what I'm passionate about are German lagers. So
I was going to ask, because when looking at the menu, that's clearly what stands out. And one of the things that I thought was kind of funny was you guys had, I think, one hazy IPA.
That's right.
And it's such a short description, and I think that was very funny and very fitting, perfect.
I reluctantly made that beer.
I'm sure.
Now,
And
I passionately made it.
You made it with passion,
But it sells extremely well, and we've canned it, so it's doing well.
I mean, I'm a big fan of I like hazy IPAs. It comes and goes with me. I've also really have rediscovered my love of just regular West Coast IPAs. But as I was telling you guys earlier, I've said it on an episode before. I'm like, I don't really like lagers, but I actually do.
I think it's been like the last 3 episodes.
Yeah, I've stressed it over and over again. Yeah, it's been like since, I don't know if it was like December or January that I've come to realize how much I really do enjoy lagers, especially dark lagers.
Absolutely. And let's face it, we all grew up on lagers.
Absolutely.
So, whether it was, the champagne of beers or it was Budweiser.
That was my jam right there.
It was mine too. And or PBR was another one that I went to. But that's unfortunately the association that most people think of when the word lager gets tossed around.
Right.
But I do think there's a bit of a buzz, and that's how I was able to sell the management, or not the management rather, but the owners of this, was that that lager word is becoming kind of a buzzword in the brewery. At least it was maybe 5 years ago when we were planning this, and kind of what IPA was 10 years ago, and still is.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how many people come in and ask just for an IPA. They don't care what hop is in it. Just IPA.
And the market for lagers, especially if when you're going that route, and I've said this before too. I mean, look at the success Dovetail's had.
Absolutely, and Metropolitan.
Yeah, I mean, 2 of those. I always start with Dovetail, and then somebody's like, "Don't forget Metropolitan." But yeah, both of those have been extremely successful, and just going with classic styles. And I think that's it's coming back in a refreshing way, because while I can drink, reminisce to when I had Budweiser and all that stuff back in the day. Like it's similar, but it's the stuff that's coming out now is just so much better.
Yeah.
It's cleaner. It's got more body. It's got more flavor, and I would happily drink that like over a Budweiser or anything like that.
Well, one of the mistakes that Budweiser and Schlitz and all of the big brewers, Schlitz was a big brewer until '72. One of the mistakes they did was they started using adjuncts in their product, and that's why I think coming to the Dovetails, the Metropolitans, and the Double Clutches is refreshing, is because they're all malt products.
Yeah.
And so you do get more flavor and body and characteristics. And that's why I say I like the German lagers. I didn't say American lagers for that specific reason, because you won't find corn and rice and corn syrups in our products. It just doesn't give the flavor and body that you mentioned. So
yeah, I'm clearly enjoying the short beer that we're having. I am halfway through mine. It is very good. I'm really enjoying it.
Well, good. We'll keep them coming.
But yeah, and kind of to that point, the best beer I had hands down was when I was in Munich, Germany. Yeah, and I had went to Hofbrauhaus, sat down there, and I'm like, and my wife even said it too. She's like, you should drink like 2 or 3 liters. And I'm like, what is your problem? And then I was like, I'm the one that's supposed to be doing that. And then she was like, she woke up the next day, she goes, I don't feel like crap. Like,
right.
Like you get the buzz, you get, the fun times, but you don't feel so crappy the next morning. And that's a beautiful thing.
It's a clean beer.
Yeah.
Right. And and there's no adjunct in it. There's very little water treatment in it. It's just a clean beer that leaves you feeling refreshed. And I heard an interesting quote about those. I can't remember who said it, but they said that a German Helles lager, and that's really what I've modeled mine after, Augustiner specifically, which is also in Munich. And but it should be so delicious that you have to make a conscious decision to stop drinking it. It doesn't shut the door on you because you're inebriated.
Yeah.
You have to make a conscious decision. Okay, I think I've had enough. But it should be that refreshing and delicious that you just want to keep going.
Yeah, I feel like a Helles Lager is probably the first one. Like last summer, I was moving some things for my dad, and I think I stopped at Bottles and Cans and like built my own 4-pack. And for some reason, I was like, Helles Lager from Dovetail. I'll give this a try. I don't know why. It was a hot day. I was like, it sounded good. I feel like that probably started me on the path of getting back into enjoying lagers. And it's the exact I love that beer. Helles Lager is so refreshing, and that makes sense.
Well, and when I talked about, I talked about talking to other brewers, Hagen was one of the guys that I did their tour twice. And, and he's got a cool ship, and he's doing a lot of spontaneous fermentation, and they're doing a lot of experimental cool stuff there, and they're both engineers, he and Bill, and they rigged their own lagering tanks, from what I'm to understand, from dairy equipment, and purchased some of it in Germany, and and he even though I never worked with him, I've had a half dozen lengthy conversations with him about the process, and he was inspirational for me as well to be confident enough to go in this direction with this menu choice.
That's awesome. From the time that you were homebrewing, was there a certain style when you were homebrewing that you really enjoyed? Was it always lagers, or did you? I know you were talking about, experimenting, with other,
I did a lot of IPAs, and I did a lot of West Coast IPAs. So I've been to Russian River, and I love Pliny the Elder, and I did my time in Michigan. I lived in Detroit, and I lived in South Haven, and I love Kalamazoo and Bells, of course, and I love the Midwest IPAs as well. So I did a lot of IPAs. One of my favorite ones was called an 8-ball IPA because it was 8%. So I wasn't afraid back in the day to make the big hoppy beers. But of course, I think all of us homebrewers, the challenging beers are the lagers. The process is more challenging. The refinement is more challenging. They're really naked beers. There's nowhere to hide. If you make a mistake, it's right there. It's readily apparent. And so in my mind as a home brewer, the guys that could pull, the guys and girls, the women that could pull that off, were always on a higher plateau in my mind.
Absolutely.
And that certainly doesn't demean all the advancements and experimentation that have been done with hoppy beers. But that's just the way I perceived it as a young brewer. I'm old, but I'm still young enough to maybe change my mind again. So who knows where I'll end up?
It's funny that it compares to the way you describe that, because it really, it is a naked style of beer. It's almost like baking and cooking. Baking is very precise. You can't. It has to be. That's a lot of science involved.
That's right.
Cooking, you can fix it along the way, and I feel like there's certain beers that you can brew where it's especially with adjuncts, and shit like that, stouts or whatever. It's a lot easier to, not easier, but you can be a bit more creative and a little looser with your method.
Yeah, that's a safe way to say it. Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, if we mess up a batch of beer, the first thing that always comes to my mind is, we'll just throw hops on it. Let's dry hop it. Dry hop it.
It's now a hoppy beer.
So I would agree with that explanation. Obviously, now we have a hazy IPA, and I've brainstormed with a couple of my brewer friends about process, and it is in itself a very complex beer to make. So I'm having a good time. That's what always thrills me about even styles that I don't appreciate as much. The process and developing a a beer. I mean, because really every step of the process is critical to its end result. And I really get off on that in solving problems.
I agree with that sentiment of, especially with hazy IPAs. You know, the whole when I first made one, I didn't understand what I was doing. You know, of the whole like whirlpool hopping and all the double dry hopping and things like that. And so you finally figure out, you know, how you get that silky, smooth mouthfeel, you know, from like whatever grains you're using, oats and wheat, and then to experiment with the different hops, that became a fun process, you know, to figure out, you know, what flavors am I getting from these different hops. So that, I think that's where my appreciation for hazy IPAs, that's where that comes from.
Right.
Is like this, like all the different hops that you can, you know, extract different flavors from. That is a fun thing to try. So I do like those, but then I burn myself out on drinking them all the time, and it's bad.
Well, and,
I hate them again.
Back to my age again, I get like sinus congestion from super hoppy beers.
I get that too, actually, sometimes.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a specific hop. I don't know, but every once in a while I'll have one, and I'm like halfway through the beer, and I'm like, God damn it! Like,
Yeah.
it's like, all right,
It's fucking beer.
time to do the Flonase or whatever. Like,
Exactly.
gonna do a neti pot. So not to transition, kind of talk about the brewery and the brewery as a whole, but like for Steve, how did you kind of fall into the mix here?
I was lucky enough to be approached about the concept a few years back, and they were looking. I'd been at an Empirical Brewery, and they'd given me, and they were looking to get someone to GM this role, and so I took the position. Again, you know, it was crazy times. Took a while to build, so I did have to do some time at other restaurants. Not that it was prison, but you know, Pescadero, Wilmette was where I started with them. And then we started this project when it started really getting going. And then we opened up in October, like he said, but then COVID reared its head again. We had a ton of parties booked for December. I mean, we had to let go of staff. You know, it was pretty disappointing opening because, you know, we just thought we'd finally gotten over the hump, and then we had another one to go.
Yeah.
So, but it's an event space. We do live music 2 nights a week, sometimes on the weekends. We have the Jimmy Project playing tonight on Saturday.
That is actually my friend's father's band.
Oh, no.
And I
Great.
knew that
Wow.
they were playing. I didn't know it was tonight.
Yeah, they are tonight.
Very cool. So
So,
you may
yeah.
be here all day.
That's what I was telling them. I'm like, might as well just stick around.
You guys got a bed to sleep some off?
A comfortable floor.
Yeah.
Sleep in the back of a car. Yeah, nobody will know. Nobody will know.
Yeah.
Scott keeps threatening to build a hammock
yeah.
upstairs
Not a
with
bad
lagering
idea.
tanks.
But I know that's a dangerous thing to do because once I put my head down, I'm out.
That's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're an event space. We have 3 separate rooms, about 12,000 square feet, full kitchen. We do brunch on the weekends, and we had a private party last night. It was D39, a fundraiser for a local schools charity, and tonight we have a wedding shower in one room. It's pretty
Wow.
exciting,
Man.
and we have a lot of 1-year-old birthday parties.
Oh, that makes sense.
I know, because it's the last party the parents will ever have.
That's
Oh,
right.
maybe I should move my son's party to here.
There you
There you
We'll
go.
make you a deal.
Yeah.
Do you guys like PJ Masks? We're gonna put it up all over the place.
Yeah.
There was kind of a point you made, like how we all grew up kind of knowing that traditional style of lager. I don't know why it popped into my head, but like I have an almost 3-year-old son, and I'm like, he's going to grow up in a different world where there's so many different options. I'm like, his first beer probably will not be like a lager or something. It'll more than, because I'm a home brewer, so it'll more than likely be a home brew that I force him to help brew.
It'll probably be our Imperial Cinnamon Roll Stout.
Oh, yeah, hey, you never know.
I'm intrigued by the name.
Well, that sounds
Called
like
Into the
Trevor's.
Void.
What's
Yeah.
it called?
Into the Void.
Into the Void.
Yeah, we were, because we're home brewers, we did we kind of had a homebrew club for a while, and we
Make sure we're in the
went
show.
out to
Beautiful.
Great Lakes Brew Fest when they used to allow Illinois home brewers to come in there, and
Right.
we served there. They had a voting system. We're a little biased because we were telling everybody that came up, hey, you got to vote for the best beer. Like our beer won best beer in the
yeah,
entire
voting, yeah.
like over the big breweries too. I was like, this is awesome, and I'm like, it was like
style?
our
What
word
was
of.
It was the
Into the Void.
Yeah, it was the beginning.
Well,
of
that was our barrel aged
Yeah,
stout.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we had done we did a 15-gallon brew day. We all brewed the same recipe, but on 3 different systems in my backyard. And
That was
the
fun to
only
try and
difference
just guess
was
how that was all gonna work.
the only difference was they put
cool.
DME into
Yeah.
theirs. The ABV on theirs ended up coming out like 10.5%. Ours, everyone else's was around 8, and then we put it in a bourbon barrel that we procured for like a year.
Wait, I'm
For-
sorry. You blended all 3 together
Oh,
in
yeah.
the bourbon barrel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blended all 3, put it in the bourbon barrel, let it sit for a year. Literally the first keg we pulled off, we brought to that brew fest, and it was a success.
Yeah.
So shortly after that, we were kind of spitballing, and we kind of had the idea. We had a friend, we have a friend that owned a bakery at the time where like they made these massive cinnamon rolls, and I was like, what if we just put cinnamon rolls in the mash?
Yeah, we went
And
crazy.
so we we took 4 massive cinnamon rolls, put them in the
Icing
mash,
and all.
icing and everything.
Yeah,
We stuck it in there, and then
show you
the
guys
best
the
part
pictures.
was after the mash was over, we drained the mash, we opened up the top, and we're like, the cinnamon rolls were still kind of in there. And here we are, like 2 fat kids, just sitting there eating these like malted cinnamon rolls out of there. I'm like, it was the best thing we ever ate.
Sure.
It was actually really good.
Yeah. So then we added like some Saigon cinnamon sticks
Yeah.
and like
We made
let
your
that
own
sit.
vanilla extract with Buffalo Trace.
Yep. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and,
That's crazy.
And one of the things that we learned when this was also a time where we were trying to adjunct the shit out of everything.
sure.
Sugar, let's try and add it. We did cereal beers, and we learned that it doesn't do anything. It just adds a bunch of sugar to it.
Damn you, Frankenberries.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
Cinnamon Toast Crunch doesn't work either.
no, we
Well,
didn't.
that's Trevor's beer, Cinnamon Prost Crunch.
That's one of our favorite beers
Yeah.
of all. We actually drank that beer that night we brewed.
Well,
the
and it
Oh,
was
that's
funny
funny.
because we, at that brew fest, one of the beers that we brought we called Toast, and it was our cinnamon toast beer that we tried to put cinnamon toast crunch in. I think we had to adjunct it with additional cinnamon.
We ended up adding cinnamon sticks.
Yeah,
to the
because it
actual
just
keg,
like
one
we
or two
realized
of
I'm like we really got nothing from that cereal, and then it was like a month or 2 later. I think Old Irving finally it was their first release of Prost, and I was like, what? And I'm like, dude, this is exactly what we wanted.
Yeah.
This is how
Except
this
it
should
was
have
a
turned
white
out.
stout,
But it was
yeah.
a white stout, and it
Yeah,
was
it's so good.
Yeah, we look forward to that one every year.
Well, and Trevor, I'm trying to combine chef and Trevor. Trevor was a chef.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he brings a lot of that experience to his brewing process, which is really cool. And
Yeah,
it sounds like you guys were doing that too.
Yeah, we learned. Trevor's story is pretty amazing, very
Right.
unique. That was one of the best interviews we ever did because Trevor, as you know, can talk, and we barely had to say anything, and it was in a good way. Like
Right.
it really was. We just sat there and would like just yes.
Yeah.
It's so good. He's such a
Yeah,
good
no,
guy.
he's a great guy.
And then that day we got to try the cinnamon Prost
Nitro.
Yeah,
Yeah,
after
that
we
was
were done
good.
with the interview, so that was fun. That was another early morning. Let's have some beer. So, what else?
Sounds like an early night too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I went home and they gave us a lot of beer too. That was insane.
Yeah. So you talked about scaling up, obviously from your homebrew days. So I don't know if we actually asked this question. So what size system do you guys have here currently?
Well, it's a 15-barrel brew house.
Okay.
And it's a 3-vessel system. And what we did, because the intention was to do these relatively complex malts, we combined our mash tun with our brew kettle so that we can apply step mashing and heat to the mash
nice.
cycle. So we go through pretty complex mash routines. We have a computer program that sets those profiles for us.
Nice.
And each one runs anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours just on the mash, depending on what style you're doing. But that gives us the ability to do proteolytic rests, even though we don't do those with this malt, but we can do the ferulic acid rest when we do our Hefeweizen, which will be coming back out next week. And so it just gives us an opportunity to do things. So like I can spend time in beta amylase and alpha amylase, which is nice.
Yeah.
So like for that hazy IPA, I like to get a lot of alpha, but I need some beta, right? So it's nice with this program. I'm able to sort of sweep through beta.
That's awesome.
And then rest in alpha, which is a nice way to do it, because most brewers are doing a downward
Right.
infusion, right? So you're just picking your temp, and then you can, if you want to start in alpha and end up in beta, you can do that. It just takes a long time.
Right.
So, and then we do have, if you look up above, we do have our horizontal lagering tanks. So all of our lagers can sit upstairs for, depending on the style. The Maibach was up there, I think, 10 weeks. The
Wow.
Doppelbock was, I think, 12-week beer. So, so we have that opportunity too, which is nice about this system.
So how often are you guys brewing here?
Well, it really depends on consumption. So we will be brewing twice next week. We have an event coming up for Meals on Wheels, and I spoke with Deborah, who's, I don't know what her title is, maybe CEO or something, but I communicated to her kind of off the cuff that, hey, we could do a special beer for your event. And I thought it would just wash over. Well, she came back a week later and was like, I really want you to do a special beer for us. So I thought, okay, it needs to be something that's not German.
Right.
So we're doing a Belgian wit beer.
Oh,
We're
nice.
calling it Meals Wit Wheels. We did a full 15-barrel batch of it.
That's awesome.
And the proceeds will go to, a portion of the proceeds will go to Meals on Wheels, which is just around the corner here in the 5th Ward in Evanston. So
Awesome.
So it's a little way to throw a bone back to the community. And
they were one of the first events that Bert booked here, which we're very excited to be, a good neighbor. They're just up the street, so.
That's awesome.
yeah, and she's great. She's into the blues scene, so she
Yeah.
comes in on Thursdays and listens to the blues.
She's got a good band lined up. I forget who it is, but pretty big name.
I think you mentioned it. Maybe it was with the hazy. Did you say you canned it?
The hazy, yes, yeah,
So,
the little juice coupe.
Did you can it just to release here, or do you guys
Yeah,
plan
we
on
can
doing
sell those, but
We're not distributing them yet. We will. We just did it was the first time we ran. We did what?
800.
800 cases.
We did 34 cases, and those are 4-packs, 16-ounce 4-packs. And we did 34 cases of 3 different flavors. So
Like
we did the
12 and a half
alt beer, the
barrels,
Helles, and the...
alt beer.
The alt beer, the Helles, and the little juice coupe, the hazy IPA.
Okay.
We just want to see how it did.
Nice.
And the sales are good. We learned a lot. We'll probably do twice as much next time.
Right.
Went fast.
We used Ironheart. Well, it's going quick, but
Yeah.
we just wanted to see, make sure the product held up.
Sure.
And we learned some stuff.
Yeah.
And it went much smoother than I expected. So yeah, we can do more.
Yeah, especially with hazy IPAs. We've talked about shelf stability before. With we were just at Goose Island. We did a thing with them for their. They were talking about how the process for certain juicy IPAs, hazy IPAs, the shelf stability is tough because
That's right.
how the beer is made. Some breweries can get away with it because it's not on the shelf for very long, and then others, when you mass produce it, it has to sit. It's going to sit on the shelf for a little bit because there's a lot of beer going out there.
That's right. The more you make.
So yeah, that's interesting. You guys chose to put that one out, but you guys are doing it here. People are buying it. It's not sitting on a shelf somewhere. It's sitting here at the brewery and going right out to.
Yes.
That's right. That was the plan, yeah. And so we are in the process of getting a new distributor. So we are hoping that you will see these products on shelves, but we're working on that.
Good. That's awesome. Well, you just brought us some more beers. What do we got here?
The Helles Lager.
Yeah, I was hoping that's what it was going to be. Nothing like a couple beers first thing in the morning. I love this.
Yeah, and that was, so when we initially started talking about this, that was what I thought would be our marquee beer.
It's really good. And actually, that's a nice. I'm glad we started with darker, going with the Schwartz beer,
Yeah.
and then to move around to this. Not that I wouldn't appreciate this, but I feel like I'm appreciating it more to go from something that was a little maltier, a little heavier, to something that's very light, kind of fruity, refreshing. It's very crisp.
Yeah.
This is good. Man, did you say you canned this one?
Yep.
We did, yes.
Do you guys still have cans of them here?
Yep.
We do.
No,
You might have some in your car.
I
When
was
you
gonna say, I have to grab some. I'm hanging out with my cousin tonight for his 40th birthday, so
nice.
Perfect.
there we go. Some birthday beers. Sorry, man. I'm not hanging out with you.
That's right. I see you enough,
Wait, you're not going to be here?
right?
I should just bring him back over here.
Yeah, you can see Dana's
It's not a
dad's
terrible
dad.
idea. Let's see. Where are we at? So, do you have some of your
No,
Okay.
go.
We're, this is the fun part of editing where I have to go back and cut out the parts where I go, So you guys are here now. Since you guys are fairly new, for being open, I guess it's kind of crazy to ask this question, but I kind of feel like it's a good way to wrap everything up. What are the plans for the future? What do you guys see happening, or what are you guys planning on doing? Anything else? Or you're just kind of riding with what you guys got now? And
Well, I think Evanston's been extremely supportive, and
Absolutely.
we're finding a good niche with locals. Of course, we want more people to know about us.
Sure.
So we are doing a few beer events here and there, and and like Scott mentioned, we'd like to distribute, but the use of the spaces we're figuring out with live music and beer events, and we're starting to work on our first Oktoberfest for the fall.
Awesome.
We have a lot to do, but we have a lot of, I guess, hopes and plans that we'd like to try to pull out. And we'd like to be a mainstay, a big
Sure.
place to go.
Evanston's, beer scene, so to speak, has, I used to work here when I was across just the other way of when Temperance opened up. So when Temperance opened up, it was a big deal. I got to see,
It was huge,
I actually
yeah.
got to do a walkthrough. The owner of the company that I was working at was friends with the guy who was opening up and or doing the work on the building. So I got a chance to walk through it, and it was kind of nice to see, like, oh man, this is exciting. Like, Evanston's getting a brewery, and since then, obviously, other places have opened up. So
Right.
you guys are part of a already, I think, really nice
A good market.
collective of
Well, and I didn't
breweries out
mention
there.
them, and I should. I didn't mean to exclude
Oh, no,
them,
no,
but
no.
Temperance and Sketchbook
Yeah,
have
Sketchbook.
been extremely helpful. I mean, I've met all their people, and everybody's just bent over backwards helpful to get us moving.
Sketchbook is another place we're hoping to talk to. We were just at their Skokie location.
Yep.
Well, not just. It was a month or so ago. But that location is awesome.
Yeah,
so
it's
nice.
really cool.
So nice. I mean, I love their little tap room that they had. But
And Caesar, I mean, couldn't have been nicer.
I've worked some beer festivals with him. Like
Yeah.
when they first opened up, I actually have a very old, like, wooden Sketchbook tap handle that I got from working the festival with them. So it's kind of cool.
Very cool.
That's nice.
Yeah, but they're all good guys.
Was it Skokie or Evanston? I have the faint memory of like being dry for quite some
Evanston
time.
was.
Yeah.
Evanston, that's why
Temperance.
Temperance,
Yeah.
that's where their name came from, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember it was like a barren wasteland. And
Right.
like stuff,
Right.
there, like even for bars, it was like,
Yeah.
there was
Right,
stuff in
no
Skokie,
alcohol.
and
For
then
years.
across the border,
Yeah.
it's like, no.
Yeah, well, Howard Street is the border
Yeah.
for Evanston and Chicago, and one side was dry. I mean, just back in the 70s,
Yeah.
right? And then the other side was wet, I guess is the opposite of dry.
Yeah, that's a good point. Never really thought about that.
So what, just kind of talking about the experience here, so what can people expect as far as like, I think you said you have like a blues night?
Yep. We have trivia on Monday. We have drag queen bingo on Tuesday.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Muffy Fish Basket is her name.
Yeah,
And
That's the best name.
yeah, it's a hoot.
That is hilarious.
and then, like you said, we have the music we're doing every Wednesday night and Thursday now. And then events when we have private events or, we take reservations for 10 or more. Just a lot of people doing parties and stuff. So, yeah. We open
Yeah.
the rooms as needed.
So as far as beer goes, somebody's coming here for the first time, what do you recommend they start with?
Well, I got a story.
Oh, good.
You can edit this
like
one
it.
in there somewhere. So, for my 50th birthday, we of course I'm 56, so this is a few years ago, but we did Oktoberfest. So my birthday's October 2nd, so it just fit perfect. We did a little early celebration, went to Munich, did Oktoberfest. There were 10 of us, there were 5 couples. But what I really wanted to do was go to Bamberg. So Bamberg's about a 2-hour train ride north. It's still in Bavaria, but it's in the northern part of Bavaria, and it's in an area called Franconia because a lot of Franks live up there. My last name is Frank, so I felt right at home.
There you go.
But Bamberg, if you don't know, is famous for its smoked beers. So, in the malting process prior to indirect kilning, every beer had a smoky characteristic to it to some degree, and because that's how they dried the malt, right? And so in Bamberg, they still honor that old tradition, and they make smoked beers. Most people know Ex-Schlenkerla,
Yeah.
and they're Märzen, but Americans associate smokiness as like a Baltic porter might be smoky. They associate it with a dark color. So we were there. I had a list of breweries I wanted to go to. We went to, and Faisla and Special are right across the street from each other. And Special, we went to Faisla, their beer was good. It was German beer, it was good.
Yeah.
But Special was closed, well, they weren't closed, they had a private event, so we weren't able to see it on Saturday. We were coming home, or taking the train back to Munich rather, on Sunday. We had a noon train to catch. So I wake up, my wife's still getting dressed and ready to go. I'm packed. It's about 10 a.m. and I said, I'm going to swing by Special and see if I can get a picture or something or see a menu. Well, I get to Special and it's open. Not only is it open, it's packed. And everybody's sitting at long beer hall tables drinking a Helles Rauch beer. I'd never heard of, seen anything like it. It was as clear as the Helles you're drinking, as bright, but as smoky as any smoked beers you'd ever have.
Wow.
You'd ever had. I immediately, when I got home, started working on that recipe and getting the ratio of Pilsner malt to smoked malt, and not going overboard with the smoke, but not because it becomes too astringent.
Right.
You need some sweetness to balance it out. Getting that recipe right was a real challenge for me. So you ask, what can people experience when they come here? Our Helles Rauch beer. So I don't think you will find anything quite like that anywhere else. It's truly German. It's inspired by Bamberg,
Right.
and I'm quite proud of it. And you know, people either love it or hate it. There's not a lot of gray area in between
Sure.
those two positions because it's smoky.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, if you don't like smoke, it's like
yeah, so give that one a try. We'll line you up. You got to run the rail before you leave and try every flavor. But
Okay, if you say so.
but that's where that style came up, and I think it makes us unique.
That sounds awesome.
no, and I'm glad you said that too, because I remember reading the description on the website, and I go back and forth, and it's not that I don't love smoky beers. You know, I would prefer this, but I do love when they're done right. And especially if you're following, you know, trying to stay true to the process, you know, from Germany, that's pretty awesome. And I am excited to try that. As soon as you said that, I was like, yeah, you got to go that route.
We usually give that on the tours. You get a flight when you do our brewery tours. So that's one that people always...
I saw that. Yeah, I saw
try.
the ad for the brewery tour. It sounds kind of fun. So anybody in the Chicago area, come here and also do the brewery tour.
Yeah,
Second
so
and
you
fourth
get-
Saturday.
There you
Yeah,
go.
the second and fourth Saturday of every month, and you get 4 beers. It's not just, you don't get the flight at once, you get 4 beers. So we start with the Helles generally, and then we'll move to the Schwarzbier, and we talk about the different types of malts and the malting process. And then we go through a step-by-step quick run-through of the brewing process, and we talk about the hops. And of course, then we bring in the hazy IPA, and we finish with the Rauch beer and my lovely story from Bamberg.
Actually, before we wrap it up, did you get a chance to try the beer when they were open? When you stopped over there?
Especial?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think he
Oh,
missed
yeah.
his train.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I missed the train to Bamberg. I made the train home.
I thought you missed the train because you had too much fun.
The night of Oktoberfest, I didn't find my way back to my hotel room until about 4 a.m., and I missed my train the next morning.
Sounds about right.
Yeah,
Sounds like a good time.
I was gonna say it sounds like a successful Oktoberfest.
it was. I succeeded.
Well, we could sit here and keep on talking. What we like to do though is maybe come back sometime in the near future
Absolutely.
and have another conversation, catch up with you guys again. This has
Sure.
been a lot of fun. We're happy to finally made it out here. We're happy that you guys are here in the greater Chicagoland area. It's awesome to have another great brewery that is so close to us. I feel like living in this part of Illinois, Chicago, we're really lucky. We're really lucky
absolutely.
with how many breweries, good breweries, and not even just breweries, but
Yes.
how many good breweries are around. And it's a community. It really is a community.
It is.
From like just you saying, people that you've reached out to and talked to, and everybody is so supportive. It's a really solid community, and we're very lucky, and we're happy that you guys are a part of it, and to have another stop, for me to go to in Evanston.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Appreciate
It's I always think competition makes a better product.
Absolutely.
And while I don't get the sense that I'm competing with any of my fellow brewers, they've all been bend over backwards helpful. But when they come out with a product that raises the bar, I feel I need to as well. And we are blessed in Chicago to have a lot of people raising the bar.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good beers here, and that keeps a brewer on his toes, and that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the best thing I've noticed about the Chicago breweries. And I don't know, maybe it's like that everywhere, but I just feel like, everyone's had their hand in, one brewery or another before they start their own. And
That's right.
it just creates that camaraderie. Yeah.
That works.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't need a third
Yeah.
beer.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just great that how everyone we talk to, there's nothing but compliments. And I don't
Right.
think I've seen that in many other industries. So it's very cool to see that, that still carries on. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with that assessment. I mean, it's almost shocking that, here we are, technically I think we were the 5th brewery, because there's Smiley Brothers and Peckish Pig that we didn't mention.
Right.
Yeah.
And no one shut their doors to us
Yeah.
and saw us as a competing market that was going to be taking part of their share. No one treated us that way. They all were happy to help us in any way they could. So it's
awesome.
amazing.
Yeah, and even like in times of tragedy, like
Twisted Hippo.
Twisted Hippo,
Yeah.
Right.
Literally before the flames were out, there was a GoFundMe that had thousands of dollars
Yeah.
already started.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
ridiculously amazing to see. I saw that and it was great. And sadly, like Twisted Hippo, we had been in communication with them. We were gonna chat with
Yeah.
Marley and Carl, and this happened. But I think that'll be a good conversation to have, once they get their footing again and start, I hope they do something else, because they were a bright spot in that community too.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Agreed, yeah.
Well, you guys are about to open. Thanks again for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it.
yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
And we look forward to coming back here very soon. Maybe staying the rest of the day. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's raining. I can stick around. It's fine. Thanks, guys.
The office
thank
floor is
you.
yours.
Oh, thank you. Brandon, love you, man.
Love you too, bud.
See you guys later.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
This has been The Malting Hour. Be sure to follow us on all social media by searching The Malting Hour and at themaltinghour.com. You can also follow us individually on social media. Brandon can be found on Instagram as BMDub81, on Twitter, BDub81, and on Untapped as BDubDrinksBeer. Tony can be found on Instagram and Untapped under Asa Phelps Chicago, on Twitter, The Asa Phelps Chicago. Clark can be found as Clarkowski on all three. Dan can be found on Instagram as hip__hops and hip hops on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, like, and rate the show on your preferred podcast listening platform. Until next time, cheers from all of us at The Malting Hour.